This is the side of Argentina most influencers will never show you. Mainly because most of them are only in town for a few days or a few weeks, and they feel no need to even enter this, or they're scared to do so. For those of you tuning in for the first time, my name is Leo. I'm originally from Miami, Florida, United States, and I started living in Argentina for 6 months at a time 4 years ago. 6 months ago, I decided to stay here the whole year, so this will be my first winter here in Argentina, and I'm staying throughout the year. That being said, I live here in the Congreso area of Montserrat, Buenos Aires, and this is where they have most of the manifestations. And these protests happen very often, usually on Wednesdays. If you've been following my channel for quite some time now, you would notice that I don't get into anything political or controversial. That being said, these protests are highly political because it's usually the people opposing the current government. But as for me, I'm just a spectator. I just wanted to cruise through this protest manifestation, call it what you may, and capture some images and share it with you guys. If you're looking to visit Argentina, don't be alarmed because these typically only happen in Buenos Aires. And Buenos Aires is huge, and these do not affect the entire city. These protests are almost always concentrated in the Congreso area, in the Obelisco area, and in the Plaza de Mayo area, which is directly in front of the Casa Rosada, which is the White House of Argentina. So if you're throughout the city or in Palermo or anywhere else, you will not be affected at all. But even if you find yourself in an area which is affected by these protests, the most likely scenario would be that it's just more congested and you would be in a little bit more of traffic. As this video shows, it's a very peaceful protest. There's nothing out of the ordinary, nothing crazy, no fights, no riots, nothing bad going on. But how would it be breaking news if there wasn't any turmoil? So the media likes to blow things out of the proportion. It's usually peaceful because these protests happen once a week for the entire year. So it's at least 52 times a year. But on a few occasions, maybe 2-3 times a year, there is some incidents where there's some clashes with the police, where there's some protesters start to riot or start to fight or start to throw stuff at the police, and the police has to step in and fight back, and sometimes there is some injuries or even worse. But that is not the norm. Argentines are very peaceful and are very educated people, and they conduct themselves in a very respectful manner. But as we know, the news outlets, the reporters, need something to sell. They need to keep their ratings up. That same can be said anywhere in the world, especially United States, but especially here in Argentina. They like to dramatize everything. So if they burn a garbage can, that's gonna make breaking news. That's gonna make front page news. That's gonna make headlines. And best believe there's always gonna be 100 reporters there to capture the images and to glorify it all. I've been told many times not to enter these protests because they could be very dangerous. But I've been living in this area for a few months now, and I have not once seen anything out of the ordinary. So as you see, it's usually peaceful, it's usually relaxed, it's usually just people chanting, drumming, sometimes throwing fireworks, sometimes screaming obscenities. But not saying that I agree with the cause, not picking sides. I'm just saying Argentines in general, whatever side they are on, are very peaceful people. I love United States. It's where I spent 90% of my life, but I do not feel safe walking through a protest in United States. There's been many incidents in United States where people are peacefully protesting, and then you have instigators or people from the other beliefs show up to those protests and start fights or commit violent acts against those protesters. And personally, I don't want to be anywhere near or purposely put myself in danger. But here, Argentina overall in general is statistically safer than the United States. Although Buenos Aires is riddled with petty crime, it's very common to hear about someone getting their phone snatched, or in the suburbs, home break-ins. For the most general, it's not a population that has a lot of firearms, and they tend to be very peaceful and very relaxed people. That being said, I'm not saying that people in the United States are violent, but if you watch the news, you know what I mean. You know exactly what I'm getting at. And although there's crazy people all over the world, in the United States there seems to be crazy people that do crazy things a lot more often. And the easy access to firearms in the United States does not make things any easier or any safer. Argentina does not have that problem. Although yes, there is some criminals that have firearms and there is some violent crimes with firearms, it's not the common, it's not the norm. Most of the robberies that I mentioned, the petty theft that takes place, it's usually without any weapons. It's usually snatch and goes and pickpockets. And what I find most alarming of United States is not the criminals that have weapons and use them. It's the everyday citizens. It's the hard-working fathers and mothers that go to work, that feed their children, that are good law-abiding citizens. Those are the scariest people, because those people are armed as well. Those people have a weapon on them. And sometimes they're having a bad day. Sometimes they're at a very poor mental health, or they've consumed medications or drank, or who knows what they did. But they're just driving down the road, minding their own business, and someone cuts them off and he honks and the other guy gives him the finger, and they get into an exchange and get into an altercation, and then that's when things get ugly. And that happens every single day in the United States, especially in the bigger cities. And that is frightening. That is frightening, because you never know who you're gonna mess with. You never know who's having a bad day. And you never know when you're gonna put yourself in danger. Because you could be having the most peaceful day, listening to smooth jazz on your way home to your kids, and someone cuts you off, and you just instinctively honk your horn, and he just blows a fuse and cuts you off, stops and comes to scream at you. And what do? You defend yourself, or you scream back, and either you or him takes out a weapon and takes things to a level, to a degree which it should have never reached. And I find that shameful. I find that heartbreaking, That's something that's not typical here in Argentina. That's why I felt safe walking through this protest. Because although I can't deny the fact that I've studied this enough to know that things can get serious and things can get violent, and they have been riots and violence and looting here in Argentina, it is not typical. It is not common. It is not something ordinary. The truth is that throughout the years, there's been hundreds and thousands of peaceful protests without any incidents. And that in itself says a lot about the people from Argentina. Because they are angry enough, they are passionate enough to protest, to fight for their rights, to fight for a change, or whatever they may be fighting for or angry about. But they do so in a peaceful manner. And yes, there's been hundreds of peaceful protests and demonstrations in the United States. It is more common for things to turn sour. It is more common for people to burn cars or start riots or go looting. And that's just the truth that we have to live with. Those are just facts. But in conclusion, my motive wasn't to compare the two countries or to compare the two types of people. My motive was just to give you a bigger idea of Argentina in itself. And although I may or may not agree with these protests or even care, they are a part of Argentina. Because as I said, they take place very frequently here in Argentina, in the heart of the city, in Buenos Aires. And the most profound way to know a city is not just by visiting the bars and restaurants, but it's getting to know the people.